What's up, guys? Maximizing your conversion rates on your e-commerce product pages with multivariate testing. So, wanted to do a quick training video on how we use Visual Website Optimizer, running multivariate tests, and trying to increase that conversion rate so that we can reduce our CPAs and our overall acquisition costs. So, why we're starting with product pages? We're primarily e-commerce marketers. So when we're running a lot of Facebook ads, we're typically driving most of our traffic to the product pages. So it's kind of just going after the lowest hanging fruit, and we're going to see the biggest impact by starting there. I mean, you can obviously dive in and run tests on your cart pages and your checkout, your collection pages, your home page, wherever you want. But because we're driving so much traffic to these product pages, we can really get in there and test the elements that we think are going to have the largest impact, and not just those elements individually, but how they work best in combination with each other for the visitors that you're driving to the site, and really try and get some meaningful lift in your conversion rate. So that's what we're diving into today. Just to give you a bit of an idea of what sort of results we get. This is a campaign that we've paused at the moment, but we'll switch back on. But it's still pretty early stages, but you can see the sort of lift here. So we run a fair bit of traffic, and just to go back a step, for multivariate testing to work well, you need to have significant traffic going to your website. If you're only running $50 a day, you're going to struggle to get data quick enough to be able to make any decisions. It's going to take you months. The variable on that obviously is how many different elements you are testing in combination with each other. So obviously the more things you're testing, the more traffic you need to be running to be able to get data quick enough. We don't want to be running this for months and months and months on end to be able to make any decisions or see anything significant. So just be wary of that. If you're only running low volume traffic, I mean, sure, jump in here and at least do A/B tests, but I mean, you might be able to test, two, larger impact elements that you think might give you some lift in combination with each other. But you just got to be wary of that combination or that relationship between the number of variables you're testing and how much traffic you're running to your site. So from here you can see, so the control in the reporting, the control is always the original page that you're testing from, and then the combinations are obviously the combinations of the different variables that are running. So you can see, we've got different variables running in here that are rotating, and we're trying to find out what has the best results. So you can see here, our conversion rate on the control so far is 9 conversions out of 150 people who have viewed that page, that original page. The best performing one is got nearly 2.5 times that, or more than 2.5 times that. It's had 24 conversions for 162, and our revenue per visitor is significantly higher. There's a 200% improvement. Now, as we gather more data, and typically, I like to sort of get, for the ones that we really want to validate, at least 100 conversions per page, just to feel a bit more confident in the lift that it's sort of reporting to us. The more data, the more accurate it's going to be. But the signs here with the lift, which is really consistent, large lift across these these combinations, it's really significant. So even at this stage, this is statistically significant that there's going to be an improvement. How large that improvement is, we want to get more data to it first. But yeah, just to give you an idea of the type of impact this can have for your conversion rates, and then the flow-on effect is lower CPAs. So yeah, we'll dive into how to set this up now. But yeah, hope that gets your interest. So the first thing we like to do before we start these is make a list of the elements that we want to test. So doing a quick product page audit, looking for elements and things on the page that we think, we create a hypothesis that we think, changing this may have a better impact, and making a list of these things that we want to change, so that when we're going in to set this up, we know exactly what we're going in to do. So looking at this product page here, there's a few things that stand out to me that I think could have a really positive impact. So the first thing is this product details title. to me, it's totally irrelevant and is just pushing everything further down the page. So removing that is going to probably be the first thing that I'd want to test. The second thing, I would be looking to push this image above this section, the product title and price. I'd also just test removing this 11.com title here. I don't think that's necessary. We've got a logo up there. People have seen the brand and the site and the URL they're coming from. So I think that's just another thing pushing detail further down the page that's unnecessary. Outside of that, once we start getting down further on the page, I mean, around the call to action button is obviously super important. So how can we maximize the likelihood of someone clicking that button? Because that is the core goal of this page. So, for example, things that I would want to be testing here is button color, call to action text. If we've got some value adds like free shipping and things like that, having icons underneath here, and anything else that we can improve. If we want to get granular, and you're driving, for those of you that are only really driving something to one or two products or a few products, you obviously want to test product descriptions. These are obviously something that needs work on this site. That's taking it a little step outside of what we're doing here quickly. But yeah, around this part, around the add to cart button and that call to action button, if there's things that we can improve that we think are going to increase the likelihood of someone clicking that button, that's what we're trying to achieve. So here, as far as button color goes, it's not like button color increases conversions, that argument, it's a pretty simple element, but it can have a really positive impact, and I've seen it have a positive impact. It's not whether red converts better or green converts better or orange converts better as a blanket rule. To me, in my experience, it's typically been how well the button color contrasts with the rest of the site to make it stand out. The call to action button here is the one thing that we want to jump out at us on the page, because it's the absolute goal of this page. So for me, when I'm looking at this, I really feel like a red call to action could work better. So that's something we can test. We can test a green one, changing add to cart to buy it now. That's also something very important that could work well. Another sort of deeper dive test that you probably you will need to develop to help set up is having that different from mobile to desktop. If you dive into your analytics data, you'll often find that on mobile, your average order value is slightly lower and the number of products purchased in each transaction is lower. So what you can do in that case is set it up on mobile so you could have checkout now, and when they hit that button, they're driving direct to checkout. If you typically know that your mobile purchases only really purchase one product, then you might as well send them straight to the checkout and skip the cart, because it's removing an additional step that's typically unnecessary and could have a really positive impact on your conversion rate. And then on desktop, where they're more likely to navigate around, buy more products, then stick to add to cart and just have your standard flow. So a perfect example of this is Bellroy. For those of you who know the Bellroy wallets, great brand, great website, just really e-commerce done really well. They do this. If you go to their mobile site, you'll see their call to action on their product pages is actually check out now, and then on desktop it's add to cart. I'll actually just bring it up quickly so you can have a look. They have great products. They really filled a gap in the market for that as a step-up brand in this area. Premium quality, not insanely high prices, but their product videos and their marketing has been really strong. But I'll just quickly show you the product page to give you an idea. So we can see here on desktop that it's add to cart. It's a really clean design, great images, covering benefits and features here, all the necessary information. But then if we switch this to mobile, the call to action becomes checkout. So it's really interesting. So if we hit checkout, it actually takes us direct to an express checkout. Now, if we're back on desktop and we hit that, it goes through the typical modal box pop-up and adds to cart and allows you to keep shopping around. So that's obviously something that they've picked up in analyzing their data and they've implemented on their site because it's a very significant feature for them. So anyway, back to here. So we've gone through, the type of elements that we can change. So how creative you want to get, you may need a developer to get involved. If you want to do something like what Belroy's doing, or anything that requires some custom coding, you typically want to get a developer involved. But for the sake of speed, it's unnecessary. There's enough sort of just visual changes and repositioning changes you can and messaging changes that you can do quickly and easily, and have this all set up within half an hour and running. It doesn't need to get more complex than that to get it moving. And then once you've done that, then you can come back and get a developer to work in the background and set up some other tests once you've got some data and seen some lift and got some improvement. So they're the type of things that we're looking at on the product page to do. So now we're going to jump back into VWO and run through the actual setup. So we want to go Multivariate Tests, Create. Now, we need to here set this up for advanced if we're wanting to run this test across multiple pages. If you're just wanting to run this on one landing page, you don't need to do that. You can just do simple. But for example, here we want to run this test across every product page on this site. So we need to grab a product page URL, which will become the base URL that we'll create the variations on. But we need to change that to matches pattern so that we can edit the URL variables so that it will actually display across every product page. So the variables in this URL, I don't think collections is, but I'll change it anyway. Shirts definitely is because it's going to change via category. And then the product name, and typically at the end you're probably going to have UTM parameters as well. So you want to add a variable, an asterisk for that so that that variable doesn't come into play and stop it working. So wherever there's a variable, you need to just change that and change that, and then you've got your base URL in here. So that will set it up so that it's run this test. Whatever changes we set up in this test will run across every single product page. Now we go down to more options. Now this is extremely important, and again, this is just how you want to test things. But the capabilities in here are really, really strong and really important. So to set this up, we're going to do it on mobile just because, as I said, most of us are running mobile traffic, so it's probably going to be the most relevant. So we can set this up. You can do this via whatever device you want to do it here. iPhone's typically going to be the most common one, so we're just going to set it up so that we know it's displaying properly on iPhone. Now, who we show this test to? This is very, very important. At the bare minimum, you want to be doing them separately for mobile, desktop, and tablet. They're all going to perform differently with different combinations, and if we set it up on desktop and then we're running it to all traffic, for example, it's not going to display properly on mobile. So we need to make sure that this is set up so it's segmenting a particular audience only. Now, how granular you want to get with this, you can dive into custom, for example. And to give an example of where we'd particularly want to use this, if we go back to here, one thing we do like to test is removing the navigation when this is used as a landing page. The reason being, we're driving people to this product page. We want to reduce the number of leaks for them to exit the page. The core goal is to get them to click on this add to cart button. And if they've clicked on an ad or they've come from a collection page and this is the landing page for the first time, we want to reduce the number of ways for them to leave. Obviously, if they're a return visitor or they've been navigating around the site, we want to have the navigation there just for UX. They need to be able to move around the site. But when this is the primary landing page and the first time that they've visited, we want to give this page the best chance to add to cart. We'll leave the logo up there so they can still easily navigate to the home page. But typically they've clicked on an ad somewhere which has highlighted this product, so they've shown interest in this product. We want to give it the best chance of converting. So testing removing your navigation up here can really, really work well, and also testing removing breadcrumbs. So this is typically more for desktop traffic, but this is, coming back into here, this is a situation where we want to do it by technology, device, and we'd say desktop, add another condition, and then it's only display. If we were to remove the navigation, for example, we wanted to make sure that that was only getting shown to new visitors, then we can add that in there. So it's desktop people, desktop traffic who are new visitors only are going to see a variation without a navigation and see what impact that has on conversion rate. So yeah, again, there's a few variables in here as to how you want to cut this traffic up and segment it and create your tests around it. So you can get creative. You can do it by traffic sources. For example, you might want to have different messaging for people coming from different traffic sources. So it is super powerful. Like there's a lot you can do here. There's a lot you can test. And again, it just really comes back to how much traffic you've got and how quickly you want to get results. So just for the ease of setting this up fairly quickly to show you, we're going to do it simply by mobile traffic. And we'll jump into the WYSIWYG builder right now. So we've already had to think about what elements we want to test here. So the first thing we want to test is removing this product detail. So as you can see, it has it nicely displayed on an iPhone, nice gold iPhone. So we can see how it's going to look once we're running this test. So we'll click on that element and we're going to click remove. So that'll open this combination section up here. So if we click on control, that's obviously just the original control. It'll show it's there, and then variation 1 is without it. So we just want to make sure that as best practice that we're labeling all these variations. So remove product detail title, done. So that's there. So that's the first thing we've decided to test. The next thing we want to test, I want to test, is shifting this div container here below the image so that the image is the first thing that people see and it's not sort of half pushed down below the fold or anything like that. Just a note, when moving div containers around like this, but it works okay if they are within a larger container, but if you're moving separate containers that aren't within a large container, it can display funny. So you've just got to be really careful with what you're moving around and make sure that you're testing things before you launch this live, or at least making sure you're testing it really quickly if you've launched a test, a campaign. So what we want to do here to move this around, because we know it's within this larger product container, we're going to click on this block, that one, and we're going to hit rearrange. And then we can just drag and drop that below there. So we can see where that green line is. That's underneath the image. We do that. And we can see that is now underneath the image block there. So again, we want to jump in here and name that variation. So swap image and product title container, and that's done. So every time we do one of these that's in a different div container, it'll create a new section, and what it'll do, it'll rotate every variation within that section within every variation within each of the other sections. So moving down here, so this is obviously the call to action. Now, what we're going to do here, just quickly, is change the text, the call to action text, and the call to action button color. One thing that I do like to test if the button isn't like really close to full width is making sure that it's full width. There's nothing worse on mobile than having a button that's half the width of your page. People are scrolling around with their thumbs trying to hit it. If it's not easy to hit, you want to make that button as big as possible. Another thing, obviously, to test that would need a developer if you wanted to do it, but could be done at a later date, is testing a sticky add to cart. so that add to cart button is always easily positioned at the bottom of your device screen. So no matter where they wherever they scroll, they can easily hit that add to cart button. But for here, we're just going to test text and color. So we're going to click on there. First thing we're going to do is test changing the text. So we hit Edit HTML. Now we just scroll over. We've got a bit of text there in the HTML, and we'll change that to Buy It Now. Super easy. Again, we're just going to change or name that variation. Buy It Now. Now we want to know, we want to test a red button. So we click on there, and what we do here is click Style, and then make sure you go to Background, and you can see the color here. That's that blue. So we want to change that. So we're going to change that to this red, and done. So we've now got the original add to cart text with a red button. So the last thing we want to test here is the Buy It Now text with the red button. So if we open that up and go clone, then we're going to have a new variation of the Buy It Now one. So we've got Buy It Now text already changed. Then we just want to go in again, Style, Background, and change that. And there we go. So now we've got 4 button variations. We've got the original, we've got Buy It Now with a blue background, we've got Buy It Now with a red background, and the original add to cart with a red background. So how many things you want to test here? Again, comes down to your traffic, how much you want to do, how long you want to wait for data. So we're just going to keep it simple. You know how to do it. So it's just, if you want to test different text, whether it's add to basket or checkout now, and other colors that may suit your website or brand, just test whatever you want in here. So that's like just the basic run through of how we set up these changes and what we're going to do. So with those changes we've got there, you can see here we've now got 16 combinations that we're going to test. Typically, if we're running good volume, we'll look to have the combination number between 40 and 60. So we've got a really good batch of variations that we're running. So yeah, just start out with the things that you think are going to have the biggest impact, and then work around that. So the one last thing that I like to do in here before we click out and start setting up Shopify and the revenue tracking is setting the tracking on this button. It's obviously the goal. Our primary goal, I should say, is obviously revenue tracking and transaction conversions. But it's also helpful to just have a higher up view of what impacts are having on add to carts. So to set a goal for that, we simply click on the add to cart button, track clicks, and then it'll open up a goal here. Then we can name the goal add to cart, and done. So when we go into the next section and in the reporting, there will already be that goal there for add to carts. So we can have a look at add to cart rates versus conversion rates, and then see what impact all the combinations are having on both of those goals. So that's basic test setup. So now we're just going to click out of next, and the next thing to do. So you can see we've got our add to cart set up in here. Now what we want to do is set up our revenue goal. So we're just going to name it revenue, and actually I need to change that first, I think. So we want to track revenue on. There we go. Now we also want to change this to matches pattern, typically because our thank you page is going to have a dynamic variable in it for order ID, typically. So what you're going to need to do is go through your Shopify page and figure out what your thank you page, order confirmation page URL is. So for ours, in this example, I know this is the thank you page URL, and this here was the order ID variable. So I've substituted that out, and I've also added it again at the end to take into consideration any UTM parameters or variables that may be added to the end of the checkout URL. This number here is just your store ID, which you can find in your page source or in your Shopify backend. And the one last thing to be really wary of is sometimes this will be on a Shopify domain. I think it depends on what level Shopify program you're on. So if that is on Shopify and some of the checkouts are on the Shopify domain, you need to take that into consideration at the end because you need to set up multiple domain tracking. So that's set up for now. Within VWO, there's still some additional things that we have to do in regards to scripts. This section, you can pretty much just skip. I don't really use it. It's basically allowing you to input some variables here, and then it'll spit out how long you need to be running this campaign for. I do it all manually. If you want to play around with that, you can. It's just punching in a conversion rate, how much traffic you have. It's telling you how many combinations you're testing here, and then giving you an approximation on how long you need to run this campaign for. So I mean, the variable with this is if you're doing it manually, you might be switching off some combinations in the first few weeks. If you see one element that's commonly across all the poorer performing combinations, you might just switch that off. So then you're going to be driving more traffic to the ones that are winning, and that's going to speed things up as well. So yeah, there's too many variables with this for me to find it useful, to be honest. So then we're continuing to the last page. So we're just going to set this up. Mobile test number 1. So the cool thing in here now, like VW, I'm not sure how long they've had it for, but VW didn't used to have these here from memory. We used to use Hotjar for it, but it seems like they've integrated heat maps and recordings. So a lot of the stuff that you used Hotjar for getting more visibility on how visitors are behaving on your site, you can actually do that within this platform as well. So we've got heat maps enabled for it. This is fairly important. If you really want to be able to slice your data up to a more granular level, you want to set up a custom dimension in Google Analytics, which you do here. There's a walkthrough in how to do that in the VWO knowledge base. I'm not going to do that now. But yeah, the reporting in VWO is fairly top level. You're segmenting the traffic sources already, but if you really want to, dive into your data and be able to dive into the different segmentation capabilities of Google Analytics, then set this up, set it up in a custom dimension, so then you can look at the reporting from 2 data sources, which is typically, a good thing. Being reliant on one data source, then, you might pick up some inconsistencies or something across the 2 of them. So it's always a good idea to set that up, I think. The advanced options, again, coming back to what I was talking about before with being the checkout being on a Shopify domain, if that is the case, you need to select this box here. So you need to select campaign involves multiple domains if your checkout page is Shopify/store number/checkout, whatever. So that's really important. Otherwise, the revenue tracking will not work. Okay, so that's basically everything we do within VWO to set this up. So the next step now is setting up the tracking code and the revenue conversion code. So I'm going to go through that in a second, and yeah, we'll see you in a minute, and we'll jump through and get that all set up properly in Shopify.
Go to settings, and we go to summary. So what you're going to need, now I've already set this up in the past, but I'll just go through how you do it quickly. So within your campaign, you go to settings, you go to summary, and then at the bottom of the page, you've got your VWO smart code. You want the asynchronous version, and we want to copy that. So what you're going to do then is go into your store themes. So we go in here, go to online store, themes, and customize. Okay, so what we're going to go to is theme actions down here, bottom left. So I'm assuming it'll be displaying the same in yours. It may be a little bit different based on theme, but you want to go into the code. So what we want to do now is go into the theme liquid file and go to the bottom of the head. So I've already put this in, but at the end, just before your end head tag, you want to grab that code that we copied and paste it straight in here. So now that script's going to be running site-wide, so that whenever we set up any tests, VWO is going to pick that up, and it's going to be able to run the variations on whatever URL parameters that we give it. So that's the step one. Step two is we're going to have to go into settings and check out additional scripts under order processing. We're going to have to add 2 bits of code here. So we're going to have to add the bit of code that we added just before in the liquid theme in the base template. So we're going to add that there. And then we also need to go to the VWO Knowledge Shopify base. They give you the code here that you need specifically for Shopify to be able to track the revenue variable. So if we scroll down, this gives you a full run through, by the way, of how to do it step by step. So it's really easy. So when we're implementing revenue tracking, there's 2 different ways that we can do it. We can do it as a standalone revenue tracking goal. You can go up to goals here and set it up. You need a premium account to do that, and it's a lot more expensive than this account. And that's not necessarily the best approach if you're working with multiple domains. If it's your own store and you've got that account, that's fine. Otherwise, you've just got to set it up each time within each test. But it's only a couple of minutes to do that. So to set it up, add a revenue goal to a specific test, which is what we're doing here. We just need this snippet of code. So this has already got the Shopify revenue tag variable in there to be able to track it. So you just copy and paste that, and then back into this checkout, and then you paste that bit of code straight below the smart code. So that's already done. So once you've done that, that's everything set up. That's ready to go, ready to launch. And that's it, really. That's how easy it is to set up and integrate a multivariate test for Shopify. Really good. So what we'll do, we'll come back in a few weeks once this has been running, and check the results and see how much lift we've got on our original page. I'll go in afterwards and set up a couple more for desktop and tablet as well, but most of our traffic's being driven on mobile anyway, so this should hopefully get us some really good results and reduce that acquisition cost for us. Cool. Hope you enjoyed it. See you soon.